Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuhu, and a very good afternoon to our esteemed panelists, viewers here in Zoom, as well as the press and public viewers in Facebook and other social media outlets. We welcome you to our third forum in the Global DFI Online Forum Series. In the United States, COVID-19 cases now exceed 3 million. Lockdowns have been reinstated in countries where the virus had shown signs of abating, such as in Spain, Australia, and South Korea. Alongside this alarming trends is another frightening surge, the number of people living in poverty. Already before COVID-19, the world was off track for reaching the 2030 target of eradicating extreme poverty worldwide, as outlined in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Now, increased job losses and economic lockdowns, coupled with the contraction of global trade and tourism, are threatening to push 71 million people back into poverty. This is no small matter, ladies and gentlemen. This reversal in progress, the first rise in global poverty since 1998, extends to countries such as Pakistan, Ghana, and Ethiopia, which had previously witnessed incredible growth over the past decade or more. Countries must recognize that ending poverty must go hand in hand with strategies that build economic growth and address a range of social needs, including education, health, social protection, and job opportunities, while tackling climate change and environmental protection at the same time. More important than ever, we need to focus on sustainable development. As such, today, we bring to you a forum entitled Empowering Technology for Sustainable Development, jointly organized by the Association of Development Finance Institutions Malaysia, ADFIM, Association of National Development Finance Institutions in member countries of the Islamic Development Bank, ADFIMI, and the Association of Development Finance Institutions of Asia Pacific, ADFIA. This forum portrays the development finance institutions that are at the heart of development in countries worldwide. It is my honor this evening to introduce to you our panelists for the forum today. Our first panelist today is His Honorable Haji Amzad bin Mohammed, Deputy Minister, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, MOSTI. Mr. Amzad completed his studies from the National University, UKM. He has led MSET Shipbuilding Corporation, Sdn Bhd, as the Managing Director from 1995 to 2004. He was also the recipient of the Engineering and Manufacturing Award from the Yayasan Pembangunan Usahawan Terengganu, or the Terengganu Entrepreneur Development Foundation, recognizing his effort and leadership in MSET Sdn Bhd into becoming a leading shipbuilding powerhouse in Southeast Asia. Prior to joining politics under the banner of the Islamic Party of Malaysia, PAS, he led various non-governmental organizations to voice community issues, including welfare, justice, and social issues, especially against illegal street racing in Malaysia. Mr. Amzad was elected as Kuala Terengganu Member of Parliament in the 14th Malaysian General Election in 2018, and on 10th of March 2020, he was appointed as the Deputy Minister of Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. Our second panelist we welcome is Dato' Nur Halim Yunus, Chief Executive Officer of Malaysian Technology Development Corporation. Dato' Nur Halim is the Chief Executive Officer of MTDC, most widely known as MTDC, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Khazanah Nasional Berhad, the investment arm of the Malaysian government. He has been the CEO of MTDC since June 2008 and has extensive experience in the commercialization of public sector universities' research results, early stage technology ventures, innovation policy development, and fund management. He is one of the pioneers in the commercialization of R&D results from the public universities' research institutes in Malaysia and has played many roles related to the overall development of the Malaysian technology commercialization ecosystem. As a venture capital fund manager, government fund manager, incubator manager, and as industry expert in various public sector innovation-related committees for the past 28 years. Welcome, Dato' Nur Halim. We have with us today our third speaker, very far away, but very close to us today here, Mr. Mu'minul Islam, Managing Director and CEO of IPDC Finance Limited, Bangladesh. Mr. Islam is currently holding the position of Managing Director and CEO of IPDC Finance Limited since January 2012. Under his leadership, IPDC has attained a complete transformation of its business and operation by growing its business almost tenfold. Congratulations, Mr. Momin, and reducing the NPL to below 1%, the lowest in the market. Prior to joining IPDC, Mr. Islam worked in American Express Bank, AEB, and Standard Chartered Bank, SCB, with an enriching career in different areas of the banks at home and abroad. He completed his bachelor's in business administration and master's in economics with Vice Chancellor Gold Medal for outstanding academic performance. He is also a Six Sigma certified professional. Our fourth speaker, not the least, is Ms. Amna Al-Mazra'i, Manager of Customer Experience Department at Qatar Development Bank, QDB. Ms. Amna Al-Mazra'i holds the position of Customer Experience Manager at Qatar Development Bank. In addition to that, she is also leading the Digital Transformation Strategy 2019-2022 for the bank. She is essentially going to transform Qatar Development Bank. In her career, Amna's project management portfolio exceeded Qatar Riyal 30 million in scope, including major process re-engineering, products alignment, post-mergers, strategy formation, and strategy execution in multiple sectors, including banking, real estate, and commercial. Her expertise lies in applying methods such as design thinking and agile for effective and fast execution of projects. Ms. Amna's educational background is a business administration bachelor's of science degree from Carnegie Mellon University and an executive master's of business administration EMBA from HEC Paris, majoring in digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have fantastic and amazing speakers today that we hope we can shed light on the topic that we will be talking about today. Welcome to all our speakers today. It is indeed going to be a very, very interesting session today. I'm very much looking forward to the session today. So before we continue, a bit of housekeeping for all our attendees here at Zoom. The forum is organized in a way that will allow delegates to learn from each other's experience through speakers' presentation of best practices and challenges on the theme and through personal interaction among delegates and speakers through the Zoom app. So this entire session will be on Zoom. Therefore, delegates in the Zoom webinar may ask questions to the speakers through the Q&A box. Okay, so if you're not familiar with the Zoom application, there are two buttons at the bottom. One is Q&A, the other one is chat. We do not look at the chat. The Q&A button is where the questions can be provided to the panelists. Now, we also would like you to be specific on your name, your title, and then followed by the question and who you would like the question to be answered by, right? And we do not allow audio and visual questions in the interest of time. Just to avoid any screen fatigue, we're going to limit the Zoom session to 90 minutes. Anything more than that, it will be pretty tiring for viewers as well as the panelists themselves. So we do welcome question and answers, but it will be in the Q&A box in the Zoom applications. Now, for viewers in public domains such as Facebook and YouTube, you are welcome to ask questions in the comment sections. Our officers will be on standby in all those platforms to answer the questions if they are straightforward, or they would probably be able to they will be contacting me to pass the questions to the panelists here. However, please be reminded, keeping in time, we may not be able to answer all the questions, right? So we have to look at the questions and the series of questions before we are able to answer the questions. Now, without much ado, let's begin the forum. Inclusive and sustainable industrialization, together with innovation and infrastructure, can unleash dynamic and competitive economic forces that generate employment and income. We know this. We play a key role in introducing and promoting new technologies, facilitating international trade, and enabling the efficient use of resources. The crisis has accelerated this. Even my father, who is 75 years old, now uses all the online digital apps. We can't deny that. The crisis has accelerated the digitalization of many businesses and services, including teleworking and video conferencing systems in and out of the workplace, as well as access to healthcare, education, and essential goods and services. The issue to address could be how nations are closing the gap on the digital divide. So my first question will be to His Honorable Deputy Minister Yang Berhormat. We can no longer debate that 2020 has had a great impact on the way businesses operate and countries function. And Malaysia is at crossroads with immense pressure to remain competitive. What has the Malaysian government prepared for the development of industry, innovation, and infrastructure, especially in terms of funding for introducing and promoting new technologies? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to ADFIM as an organizer for inviting me to share some insights in this wonderful forum. This is a huge opportunity for me to share and highlight broad initiatives by the government of Malaysia via MOSTI towards sustainable development goal. The Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, MOSTI, has launched Malaysia Grand Challenge, MGC, to overcome the national and global crises faced by the community, economy, and environment. The main objective of MGC is to create positive high-impact results using disruptive technology to solve challenges covering various innovative integrated disciplines. MGC will benefit society by ensuring sustainable economic growth and social development, which will spur innovation, creativity, and the rate of commercialization of R&D's products. Through MGC, MOSTI will spearhead the country's transformation towards a nation of technology creators and developers, thereby reducing the country's dependence on foreign technologies and innovations. MGC will be introducing various incentives and collaborative moves to mainstream science, technology, and innovation to make Malaysia not only remains competitive, but also becoming a high-tech nation. MGC was introduced to spur the country's research, development, and commercialization and innovation, which is R&D and C&I activities. Starting 2021, MOSTI offers the R&D fund under the Dana Pemacu, which is Dana Pemacu Technology Strategy or Technology Strategic Accelerator Fund, which is being expanded to applicants among startup companies and small and medium enterprises. There are 5 funds under the Pemacu, namely Strategic Research Fund, SRF, Technology Development Fund 1, TED1, Technology Development Fund 2, TED2, Bridging Fund, BGF, and Applied Innovation Fund, AIF. Dana Pemacu will strengthen the domestic R&D and C&I ecosystem and also supports national science, technology, and innovation policy efforts in formulating the current and future technology direction of the country. The outcome of this program will catalyze the country's development, covering issues such as health, environment, food, access to technology, security, etc. Other than Pemacu, MOSTI also offers grants and equity investment through funding agencies, our funding agencies like Cradle, MTDC, MEVCAP, MDV, Nano Malaysia Berhad, and also MAGIC. Cradle offers 2 grants, which are the CIP Ignite, and another one is CIP Accelerate to startup companies that run technology-related activities. Cradle also has so far provided grants to over 900 startup companies since its inception in year 2003. Through MTDC, MOSTI provides the Business Startup Fund, BSF, which is open to startup companies that run high-tech activities, intending to reduce the financial burden at the at the business infancy stage. Moreover, under the short-term economic recovery plan, PENJANA, MTDC offers the National Technology and Innovation Sandbox, NTRS Fund, to provide financial access to startup companies and SMEs to develop and run the validation process of product, technology, service of R&D or innovation in a controlled environment, which we call it as sandbox. MTDC has also provided the Halal Technology Development Fund, HTDF, to SMEs in halal industry to support business development activities by employing technological applications in production of halal services. Financing amounting to 44.3 million ringgit Malaysia has been approved for 16 companies so far. Moreover, Malaysia Venture Capital Management Berhad, also under MOSTI, MEVCAP, will continue to offer the venture capital investment program based on funds of funds through joint ventures with domestic and foreign investors to develop and enhance the ecosystem of startup companies in the digital technology and also green technology fields across verticals including smart mobility, energy management, and big techs such as artificial intelligence, big data analysis, Internet of Things, IoT, agri-tech, and health tech. Meanwhile, the Venture Capital Fund, VCF, has provided the equity investment platform and promoted entrepreneurship based on knowledge and also technology. Furthermore, Malaysia Debt Ventures, MDV, has provided the Technology Startup Funding Relief Facility, TSFRF, financing program to technology-related startup companies affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. As of December 30, 2020, last year, financing amounting to 54.77 Malaysian ringgit has been approved for 46 companies. MDV will also continue the MDV Technology Accelerator and Commercialization Scheme program introduced in 2016. Starting this year, MDV will be introducing the MDV Technology Venture Financing Microfund Grantee Scheme, which is MDV Tech VFMG program. The program is a MOSTI initiative in creating a microfund or fund or joint financing involving private funds for startup companies. Other than that, through Nano Malaysia Berhad, MOSTI is offering the Revolution program, a combined terms of Industrial Revolution 4.0 driven by nanotechnology and Internet of Nano Things, IoT, which is the main core of IR 4.0. The Revolution program is the next step of the 11th Malaysia Plan to support the aspiration of IR 4.0 to the development and commercialization of the Internet of Nano Things that combines the innovation outcome of the Graphenovision and iNanovision programs by activating the value and supply chain per ecosystem that will participate in strategic sectors. Last but not least, through MAGIC, MOSTI has provided the Social Impact Matching, SIM, grant to social enterprises and organizations, SE. The grant is timely as SE, which uses many resources for marginalized communities, or B40, has been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. I think that is what I can share for at this stage.
Thank you very much, YB, on the sharing earlier. And we can see that there's a lot of comprehensive assistance in terms of funding, as well as looking at the different types of strategies and industries that has been focused in terms of providing the particular funding as well. Now, interestingly, YB mentioned about Industry 4.0, and one of the key driver of Industry 4.0 is infrastructure development, especially in the term of internet and internet reach and connectivity. Now, despite all the funds that the ministry is providing in, right, governments now need to balance between funding for human capital development and infrastructure. We can't avoid that debate. So drawing from the recent pandemic experience, Dato Nur Halim, this question is for you. Do you think the balance have shifted? Should governments invest more on infrastructure, especially on connectivity and internet reach? In Malaysia, we had many different types of cases where a lot of students perhaps couldn't have internet reach as well. So perhaps you can comment on that a little bit. Thank you, Dato.
Thank you very much. I think, as you had mentioned, the key word here is balance. And when you say balance, then, that's not an easy thing to reach, to achieve. Yeah. So when we talk about Industry 4.0, obviously there are many school of thoughts. There are 9 pillars, 11 pillars, 14 pillars in the Industry 4.0. But maybe if I can stretch the discussion a little bit here, when we talk about Industry 4.0, for me, the most important thing here in Industry 4.0 is innovation. Because the infrastructure, especially if you talk about the hard infrastructure, those are things that once you have the finances, you can build it. Yeah. But if you are looking at the challenges that we face today, and especially in this COVID era, if you like, what we really need is innovation. Yeah. And we are not talking about necessarily cutting edge innovation, which requires a lot of investment, a lot of heavy investment in infrastructure. But we are talking about how do we galvanize our population, our people, to think more innovatively, to solve the solutions, to provide solutions, to solve the challenges that they are facing on the ground. Because I think every country in this world are facing these challenges in different ways. I'm sure Bangladesh is also having a COVID-19 challenge, but at the ground, the solutions will be different. And the innovation that will be required to address these challenges will be different as well. Of course, then you have global solutions like the vaccine, which is applicable to people all around the world. But even that, you have the innovation challenge of actually providing a cold chain for some of the vaccines. So I think when we talk about Industry 4.0 and the infrastructure that we require, I would first and foremost put the emphasis on innovation, capacity and capability, and how do we inculcate this in the population, especially in the younger set of our population. So that's when you talk about balance just now. How do we balance things between the hard infrastructure, which can be done if you have the funds, and how do we actually bring in the soft infrastructure in terms of creating an environment where innovation is encouraged, people are willing to take risks. We are always thinking about what we can do to improve things, and those kind of things which are if not more important, but equally important in terms of addressing the COVID challenge. So if we look at least in Malaysia, MTDC, we fund technology projects, we fund innovation. And speaking on behalf of, or rather speaking as a member of ADFIM, the Association of Developmental Financial Institutions, I think this is where developmental financial institutions may want to expand their reach in terms of collaborating with innovation agencies. Yeah, because for example, MTDC now, we are working with the Development Bank of Malaysia to explore, what can we do to assist small retailers to access technologies and expand their market, right? And this is not traditional developmental financial institutions, normal operating areas, right? But it is something that is required under current situation, because with the lockdown in some countries, with the other restrictions, you need to work with the retailers, the smallholders. How do we actually bring their products to the market? Yeah. So I think this is where, when you talk about infrastructure, I do believe that it is important to invest in infrastructure, and of course, internet coverage is important. But I do also believe that what we need to work on is on developing the innovation capacity and capability of our nation, as well as getting the major stakeholders, and in this case, because all of us are in developmental financial institution, how do we work together among our members, as well as to reach out and work with other players in society, so that we could actually bring more value in terms of addressing the current challenges that we face. I think maybe that would be enough for the first question, Prasad.
Thank you, Dato. I think that is a fresh look on this internet and connectivity debate. I think even like what Dato mentioned, as far as we could have all the internet connections, we can have all the reach. If innovation in itself is not created, or we're not able to create a conducive environment that promotes innovation, that entire internet connectivity and reach and infrastructure would be to naught, right? So and there's a very fundamental thing that Dato mentioned earlier regarding innovation for DFIs, reaching out beyond, stretching the limits of each mandate, right, of the DFIs, to look at, as much as we want to create an innovative environment out there, we as DFIs themselves have to look at innovative ways to provide for us. So that, which brings us to the next question to Mr. Momin. Innovation funding. Innovation funding has always been a tricky subject. Like Dato mentioned earlier, we have to promote innovation. Now we're talking about innovation funding. So innovation funding has always been a tricky subject for many development finance institutions. Innovative ideas are usually unproven and untested, and therefore high risk. So that's why DFIs usually exist, because we take the big brunt of the risks. However, DFIs are mandated to support innovation to fuel the nation's growth. How would you look at the balance for this? What would regulators need to understand, and how should DFIs approach this? Perhaps Mr. Momin could help us to answer this question.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad, and good afternoon to all our viewers across Asia Pacific and elsewhere. So this is something coming from my previous speaker, Dato Nur Halim, was saying that innovation is the game changer now. And as we are in the era of Industry 4.0, we need to make sure that enough funding comes to the technology sphere, especially in innovation, to make sure there is the emerging economies are not lag behind, that there is no, technology divide or digital divide in our economy. As you are saying, that the key question is how we balance the risk. So we are traditionally funding hard infrastructure and human capital development. And there we knew how to deal with the risk factors there. So there is the impact, and of course there is the risk. So we were often blamed with, although in many countries we successfully we assume the responsibilities and carry out successfully the kind of impact that should be created, but often at the cost of inefficiency or the kind of capital we used up that was not in line with the kind of impact we created. Similarly, when it comes to innovation funding, there is this kind of dilemma, and it's a new charter. And of course, when technology is changing every day, you cannot be sure how you are going to really tackle the risk part of it. But at the same time, we have to first focus on the impact. So from national priorities to the social and environmental impact of that technology. Sometimes we get into the financial part so heavily, we forget about the social and environmental impact of the technology part. And in many cases, when we leave it to the private sector alone and the capitalistic model, we tend to go to the this profit motive more than the kind of social and environmental impact. And it is now evident that technology is also creating lots of income inequalities in the developed countries and coming to these emerging countries, especially the job loss impact we need to see. So for any project, be it technology or non-technology, we definitely as GFIs, for us, the first and foremost priority is the impact we are creating. Then the systemic approach to deal with the risks. One is internal capacity building. Second is how we collaborate with the market stakeholders. So this is very important in a fast changing environment. We cannot really work within a silo anymore. We need to collaborate with the market players. So in Bangladesh, so the Bangladesh government very prudently declared digital Bangladesh strategy few years back. And as you see, during COVID, Bangladesh economy remained one of the fastest growing economy despite some dent on us. So in the last fiscal year, Bangladesh grew by 5.3%, partly because of the digital, say, readiness the economy had. And when basically we are talking about this funding, so government has uh, already set up the startup funding, although it's a small unit, but it has a demonstrative impact. GFIs, on the other hand, still lag behind in terms of development funding. In different countries, we see different, say, type of readiness. So in 2019, the European, the development finance institutes, they agreed to join the Impact Investment Forum. We see in many Eastern Asian countries, the DFIs have, say, progressed quite well in terms of this innovation funding. Two of the key, say, good example I can uh, say bring to notice of our viewers today in Bangladesh. One was the BRAC Bank, which is a subsidiary of BRAC, the largest non-government organization in the world now. BRAC Bank's establishment of bKash, the mobile financial services. So with an aim to bring in financial inclusion in Bangladesh. So today we have around 35 million bank accounts, whereby bKash alone has 35 million subscribers on their platform, mainly coming from the marginal community and rural areas. Another one is the establishment of this Grameen Phone by Grameen Bank, one of the pioneer of microfinance by Dr. Yunus, Nobel laureate, with the help of Telenor. So the initial idea was how the rural people can get connected for their business purpose. Now Grameen Phone is the largest telecom operator in Bangladesh, having more than 70 million subscribers. Within IPTC, what we believe that, say, internal readiness is also very, very important. How you yourself have harnessed the technology, the power of technology. So what we are doing, we have a close collaborative say relationship with the technology sector. So we have a memorandum of understanding signed with the Bangladesh Association of Software and Services, whereby we support their national, say, annual award giving ceremony, the basis National ICT Award, from where we pick up the best ideas coming every year, and we try to support them. And within IPTC, we built the first ever blockchain-based supply chain finance, completely digital, and through which we are supporting the these SMEs across Bangladesh, especially during COVID, when financing was the cash flow of the SMEs were very say in precarious state at that time. In collaboration with the corporates and institutions, we could finance their suppliers, distributors, and retailers. So another new platform is coming up with the support of IPTC, is IPTC Dana, to bring in all the retailers across the country on a digital platform. And that is with the help from FMCG companies and pharmaceutical companies. and then giving them a small ticket finance through mobile financial service for lifting their inventories, and they pay off as they sell their product. So that can bring in around 2.4 million retailers across the country. And
Right.
the Orjon, the blockchain-based platform, which will be opened up for all the banks and financial institutions in next year, we will be supporting around 1 million SMEs across the country. So it's not only funding the, technology companies or innovative companies, but internally for our operation, for financial inclusion, we have to adopt this technology, power of technology. Thank you.
That's very interesting, Mr. Mu'min. Does Grameen Bank and IPDC come under the governance and regulations of Central Bank of Bangladesh?
So IPDC is under the regulation of Central Bank, but Grameen Bank was established by government of Bangladesh with a special charter, and they are governed by the this microfinance regulatory authority, which is under the Central Bank.
Right. So it's very interesting, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very interesting fact that we have a development finance institution that reports to the a couple of development finance institutions that reports to the central bank, but at the same time is capable of creating their own blockchain technology, right? In order for them to raise the standard of living of the citizens themselves. Now it's very interesting. You have 35 million subscriptions for the on
this mobile financial service.
Yes, the mobile financial service, fantastic actually. So that brings us to when we're talking about 35 million subscriptions, that brings us to the next question. I mentioned earlier that the crisis has accelerated the digitalization of many businesses and services, including teleworking and video conference systems like what we have today, right? Miss Amna cannot come down to Malaysia, so we have Zoom. So it got us connected anyway. So in and out of the workplace, as well as access to healthcare, education, and essential goods and services. Now, how has now earlier on we heard what Malaysia has done, and we've heard what Bangladesh has done. So we're now curious, how has Middle Eastern countries, especially Qatar, has shifted the focus or strategy, or is it business as usual? I doubt it, but or is it business as usual? Are there opportunities that Qatar sees in these times or in these areas? Please go ahead, Ms. Amna.
At my time, good morning.
Good afternoon. We can't hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. So to answer or to add to your point, you had mentioned earlier that, COVID had accelerated digitization. And to add to that, I had recently looked at a study that says that the acceleration in all regions and all sectors had actually been by almost 5 years ahead. So in the Middle East, we saw the same trend. It started with the most visible changes in the critical sectors such as health, education, workplace, and e-commerce. We expect the transformation to continue. In Qatar, we are eagerly leveraging on the opportunity to accelerate two things, the productivity and the competitiveness. And both, the nice thing about it is that we see both the public and the private sector investing in this journey. While I was hearing my fellow panelists, there are 4 key things that I think are the themes among our discussion when we're particularly talking about digital transformation. So we heard a lot of areas on innovation. We heard a lot of areas about, loyalty and gaining the growth that we've seen in Bangladesh. We've seen as well inclusivity and welfare, which are all important aspects, especially for development banks and financial institutions to carry out when we are running digital transformations. And honestly, it was very nice for me to hear the example of the sandbox that His Excellency have provided in Malaysia. We've heard similar things that are happening in terms of the, supporting innovative ideas in terms of MVPs and financing them. And we've spoken a lot about the area of financial. And I think when we speak as well about the areas of innovation, it's also important to acknowledge other areas of support that are provided. So when COVID happened, we did at Qatar Development Bank invest heavily in battling this challenge, but we have as well partnered up with the private sector and the creative minds in the region and beyond. So we have launched many hackathons and competitions, and we have received more than 1,000 ideas to address these challenges. And the beautiful thing is that more than 20 agencies in the country and beyond have joined into the mentorship of these ideas. So it's great to have ideas and innovative thinking, but you also need the private sector and the public sector to sort of mentor and to incubate these ideas. So to give you some examples, internally at Qatar Development Bank, as our key mandate is to support SMEs and startups in key industries, which as well my fellow panelists have described. So we've spoken a lot about education, industry, health, and other services in the financial sector. Internally, if you look at it, digital transformation is like a mirror. So you cannot run a digital transformation internally and not have that ripple effect to your externally with your customers. And the same thing, you can't be expected to launch innovative, digitally transformed products without having that transformation internally translated. So at Qatar Development Bank, we have launched a digital transformation strategy, and we have issued a very clear statement by 2022. We will be a fully digital bank, not only to support customer experience and efficiency, but as well to empower AI and machine learning in terms of guiding the private sector on the market trends. And externally as well, what we have done, and it was a beautiful example of collaboration. I think collaboration as a word came in the theme of all my fellow panelists. So at Qatar Development Bank, through the government, has issued a $1.5 billion guarantee as a relief package for the private sector. And the beautiful thing about it, and you see how the collaboration happens among the financial sector, Qatar Development Bank issued this guarantee in collaboration with all the other commercial banks in the country. And this guarantee, or the 1.5 billion guarantee relief, funded both rentals and salaries in order to ensure job security in this difficult time. And it was a beautiful scene of financial sector coming together, collaborating for the benefit of jobs and the benefit of the economy. So what we have called this the survival package. After that, we have initiated a sort of Thrive package in order to support the SMEs and the startups to adjust to the new normal and shift their strategies as needed. And this is what I wanted to convey in terms of how the Qatar in particular and the Middle East reacted with COVID.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Amna. I think some of the things that are key in this first round that we've seen is I think it's beautiful how Qatar Development Bank is able to, how you say, pool ideas from the public and actually nurture them through public and private cooperation. Again, I think the key theme in the first round at least is for us to be able to collaborate sometimes above and beyond the mandates that have been given to the DFIs. Now we go into the second round of this forum, right? We're going to talk about sustainable cities and communities. The world is becoming increasingly urbanized. Since 2007, more than half of the world's population has been living in cities, and that share is projected to rise 60% by 2030. Cities and metropolitan areas are powerhouses of economic growth, contributing about 60% of global GDP. Rapid urbanization is resulting in a growing number of slum dwellers, inadequate and overburdened infrastructure and services such as waste collection and water and sanitation systems, roads and transport as well, worsening air pollution and unplanned urban sprawl. Now, my first question will be to Yang Berhormat, His Excellency. The question we have is quite straight to the point. What is Malaysia's plan in creating sustainable cities and communities? How is your ministry working with other ministries to enable this? Perhaps looking at the environment, looking at the greens of economic development. Please go ahead.
YB, I think you are on mute. Okay.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, the world has been experiencing as unprecedented technological innovations backed by availability of wide range of smart technologies, IoT devices, and other applications to cope up with urbanization. Advanced devices like drones and robots are used to deliver essential supplies to rural, regional, or remote areas to ensure the people are protected and to reduce human-to-human contacts. Technologies such as thermal sensors, smart helmets, and robots are quite common now in different nodes like airports, subways and bus stations, supermarkets, and other public places to assist in controlling crowd and detecting individuals who may have signs of the coronavirus. These so-called low-touch technologies are currently being capitalized by MOSTI in some strategic areas like healthcare, transportation, construction, housing, and local government, tourism, manufacturing, and agriculture to be deployed accordingly. Some are in pilot stages via the National Technology and Innovation Sandbox, NTIS, and those innovations have been instrumental in the COVID-19 period when almost all countries have been battling severe health and socio-economic impacts. Such contributions of technology in the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic are essential to us in sustaining more economic activities. However, addressing the environmental impact and socio-economic inequality within and between cities while ensuring the fundamental rights are safeguarded is the key in our endeavor. I believe that all governments in the world are facing a myriad of challenges, including limited infrastructural developments, high costs, geopolitical wrangles, moral and ethical concerns, and lack of policy frameworks for its implementation. These challenges have been recognized by our Malaysian government, and we are working together with all related ministries to address the issues, especially those related to regulatory and infrastructural concerns. Most government policies are crafted in a manner that all sectoral players are given an equitable opportunity to share and contribute to the building of future smart cities that will embody sustainability and inclusivity dimensions, as envisioned in UN SDG goal number 11, which is to make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. As enshrined in our National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy 2021-2030, which was recently launched, comprising of 6 trusts with broad strategies and initiatives covering financing, infrastructure regulations, skills, and technology, covering the broad spectrums to be implemented by ministries and agencies in collaboration with the academia, industry, and society, including in the area of sustainable cities and communities. I would also like to share with the audience that here that MOSTI has embarked into strategic collaboration with the Ministry of Housing and Local Government, focusing on restructuring and redesigning services via technology application. In this challenging time, we need to pivot our service model, and this is the right time for us to embrace digital transformation and the technology that fuels its genesis. Currently, several robots are being deployed in a wet market in Ipoh, Perak via a sandbox program under NTIS. Embedded with other technologies like artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, those robots are used to assist delivery of groceries, floor cleaning, and for smart waste management. Considering the rapid growth in sustainable cities, conversations and deployment of additional technologies, we orbit around, number one, the current and emerging needs of the cities and communities, so that technologies introduced through intentional action and participation by the community. Mm-hmm. The second is rich insight and lessons from past development, rich insight and lessons from past development, so that improvement can be done to accelerate conversation of ideas for action today and beyond. And thirdly, the rapid changes in technology. The rapid changes in technology development, adoption, and deployment can further build and sharpen the future for researchers and entrepreneurs shaped by local, regional, and global forces.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Oibi, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I have something to add more. Thus, we are moving towards the next level of collaboration, where the technology intervention are included by design in the city's development, in the blueprint. It's my ardent hope to see more cities in Malaysia adhering to the SMART concept and soon moving towards automation of urban dimensions in the pursuit of efficiency, sustainability and economic performance. That's all.
I hope, I haven't seen robots in the markets near my place yet, but I hope I'll be seeing robots soon.
It's going to your place. It's going to your place. It's quite successful in Ipoh so far.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay. So that's I think the innovation in terms of going digitization, as well as incorporating digitization in managing sustainable managing sustainable cities and communities is very key and integral, especially when the density of the population is very large, very high, right? Any small number of a small amount of disruption to basic needs such as water or even electricity could impact millions of lives. So it is very, we can see how the ministry is actually working towards, and they probably have to work a lot more harder and a lot more faster so that they can catch up with the expansions of the sustainable of the cities and communities. Now, talking about sustainability, Dato' Nur Alim, there are three pillars of sustainability: economic viability, environmental protection, and social equity. Now, earlier on, we mentioned about the economic viability as well as a little bit on the environmental protection as well. Now, as Malaysia's population grows and urban population density increases, what are the key development or areas of interest that need to be focused to create sustainable cities and communities? Perhaps you can also share some projects in Malaysia as well that you might have actually had experience with. Please do.
Thank you very much. Maybe I the answer to this question to what we are doing at MTDC. To a certain extent, it reflects what Malaysia is doing as well. I think when we talk about cities, at least to my point of view, you can't talk about cities without talking about areas outside the cities, because if you miss out on the villages, for example, because they will continue going to the cities and the cities will become more and more overpopulated. So I think this under this SDG 11, I think one of the keywords which I can understand is the inclusivity in terms of when we address the issues of sustainability. I just want to share one project that we have under our National Sandbox program, where we have identified an area which is just about outside KL, about 1.5 hours from Kuala Lumpur, but it is in the Felda plantation. I think for the benefit of our other panelists, we have oil palm plantations in Malaysia, and generally these plantations are outside the cities. But what we are doing here under the Innovation Sandbox is that we have identified an area in the plantation to be an innovation sandbox, where we're going to bring in technologies for us to introduce and to see what can we do in terms of innovation and technologies that can assist the stakeholders outside the cities. Yeah. So I think this is something that that is important as well, because when we talk about sustainable cities and communities, we need to be mindful of communities outside the cities, which in many situations is in need of innovation greater than those inside the city. Yeah. So I think what we are working on now is we are looking at a range of drone technologies for agriculture to be used by the stakeholders in the communities outside the city. And this particular project is in the Felda plantation. We are looking at robotics and automations as well to be used by the stakeholders in terms of how we can work with them to increase the efficiency of their processes as well as the productivity. And I think to also talk about inclusivity here is that I think Ms. Amna talked about, or is it Mr. Mukmin will talk about digitalization? Yeah, because in a lot of discussion about inclusivity, when we talk to farmers, we may talk about increasing their productivity in terms of how much they can produce. But if you cannot sell what you produce, then it does not really make any sense. Yeah. So I think this is where, again, when we talk about sustainable cities and communities, I think generally from my point of view is that we need to look at it across the continuum. When we talk about cities, we have also to talk about the communities outside the cities, because they are the one that will come into the city as well. So I think there's a lot of discussion on cities, so I'm not going to go into that. But I think as an example, under the SDG 11, one of the SDGs, I think is about reducing the effects of natural disasters. And in Malaysia now, or a few months ago, or last month, we had a flood. Flood in many areas, some non-traditional areas as well. And again, I go back to my first point just now, when we talk about Industry 4.0, we talk about SDGs, at the core of it is all about innovation. And if we go and generate the innovation and we support the innovation, we get people to collaborate, to develop, to bring the innovation to be used by the stakeholders. And I think a lot of these things, will move forward. Yeah. So in the case of, for example, natural disaster, flood, for example, if you talk about water quality, generally speaking, membrane technology is almost exclusive, I would say. Not many countries in the world has access to membrane technology. Yeah. So of course, then when you talk about clean water and you talk about membrane, and membrane has to be imported, this is a big innovation question as well. Yeah. Right. So again, Prasad, if you talk about this issue of reducing the adverse effects of natural disasters, one of the component of the SDG 11, I think this is that is very important as well. Of course, we talk about water quality, we talk about recycling, we talk about modern transport or innovative transport system. But at the end of the day, when we talk about the SDGs, it's about people, about the stakeholders. Yeah, it's about the ecosystem. So I think these are things that, at least from my point of view, as somebody in the Malaysian Technology Development Corporation agenda, I think it's important for us to, when we talk about all these things, we go back to the basics of what are the pains in the market, yeah, what are the pains that need to be addressed, and what are the solutions that need to be developed, and which is affordable, which is easily transferable, and which is accessible, yeah, to people. Then we could actually then make something out of this SDG, because then it is something that will affect a lot of people. Personally, when we only talk about cities, I find it, I come from the village, so I see what's all this talk about SDG for the cities. Yeah,
right.
The city,
right.
a lot of things already for them. Yeah, but the stakeholders in the village, they have a lot of things that they don't have. So,
Right.
In this topic, I think these are the things that we are doing. We are looking at trying to generate innovations that will be equitable, that will be accessible, that will be able to be accessed by the people at large. Thank you.
Thank you, Dato, on the explanation. I think that's a very key point as well, in terms of looking not just it's true. Whenever we're talking about sustainable cities and communities, we usually tend to gravitate towards how do we focus on the major cities in terms of preventing the natural disasters, just because of the high density. But in reality, there is also other communities across the nations that we need to look at as well. And it very much makes sense to look at technology as something that should be easily accessible as well as transferable. Now that's a very key point there. And we do hope there's a lot more social entrepreneurs out there that would be able to make technology available. Essentially, doing good in the benevolent term. So, which brings us to the next question for Mr. Mukmin. Sustainable development cannot be achieved without significantly transforming the way we build and manage our urban spaces. Again, we're talking about urban, right? But feel free to expand it to the Bangladeshi, perhaps the environment there, into the non-urban spaces as well. For example, I'll just give an example here. Copenhagen, Denmark is often ranked as one of the greenest cities in the planet. In 2009, the city set a goal to become the world's first carbon neutral capital by 2025 as part of the CPH 2025 climate plan. Mr. Mukmin, do you think DFI should also include sustainable development requirements in funding development? Should the funding requirements take into consideration of economic viability, environmental protection, and social equity? Now, understanding that, I might be actually making a leap in terms of the example that I gave. Copenhagen, Denmark, they're the first world country. They've had a head start, right? And doing the same thing that they're doing might actually stifle our economy, or perhaps not be suited for our people themselves. So that's actually a bit of a leap. So I'm going to leave Mr. Mukmin to answer that question, perhaps.
Thank you, Prashad. Very interesting context and time to really answer this question. Definitely, as you said, that economic consideration, of course, is there, but at the same time, social and environmental consideration. It must be a part of our city development, or even in the community development. I think this COVID-19 has taught us two things. One is you cannot live by destroying your environment. And number two, you cannot live alone. You have to live within a community. And if you keep the other people in the society backward, you cannot have say happy or good living. So we have to have a more sustainable model for city development or community development. The issue in emerging country is that the prioritization is one. Often the economic development supersedes the environmental or social consideration. And the private sector definitely sometime or more often than not they really go beyond the national government priorities or community priorities, yeah, for the sake of profit.
Yes.
When it comes to the DFIs, we try to really promote the say, like the environmental aspect or social aspect, the kind of green financing, green building. Problem is the kind of say monitoring mechanism, the kind of compliance requirement is still so complex that the entrepreneurs generally do not prefer to really take that kind of funding for green building or a more socially responsible infrastructure,
Right.
as it involves lots of say reporting requirement and compliance requirement. Here comes the role of, say, national and local governments. So it is no more auxiliary that we prioritize uh, more, say, environmentally, say, compliant infrastructure development. Now it has become mandatory. The COVID lesson is in front of us. So unless there is fiscal incentives as well as a strict legal framework compelling the private entrepreneurs to really build cities in more compliant way, we can see major destruction of environment and also the kind of funding that should go for the marginalized population for their living will not be there. Within IPTC, basically, we saw in Bangladesh the two mega cities, the major funding or infrastructure development is happening here for population, but the vast majority of the people living on in smaller cities or suburbs or rural areas, there the this housing remains in a very poor condition and no funding is there. So with the technical assistance from KFWDEG and in collaboration with HDFC India, we have promoted the affordable housing finance in Bangladesh. There also we are trying to incorporate the climate resilient housing because Bangladesh is situated in delta and one of the or will be one of the mostly affected country due to the climate change, and many of the people can really lose their house or their housing can get impacted due to the these natural calamities. So we need to build now house which are say affordable as well as climate resilient. Government alone cannot do that. So the GFIs need to mobilize resource to cater to this segment who are maybe in the lower income family segment. In the very ultra poor segment, the NGOs or the government is working, but and the affluent segment can really take care of themselves. But in between, the this lower income, lower middle income group, which is the biggest group now and fastest growing group in Bangladesh with the economic development, needs to be also given a decent housing and also environmental friendly. So IPDC is working on that periphery.
What is the financing rates like, if I may ask, for the affordable housing?
So basically, this is where we are giving it a commercial rate. So say
Okay.
in Bangladesh, the interest rate is average is like now at 9%. So we are giving them at 8.5%. Good
Okay.
thing is in this segment, the NPA is extremely low, and this is a globally say proven say statistics in countries like India, in some part of Latin America, or even in Southeast Asia. We have seen the affordable housing finance is very, very safe. So definitely we can charge lower than the commercial interest rate in mega cities for big, expensive apartments. So,
I see.
and that one good thing we saw during COVID, whereby in the month of April and May, our average recovery rate came down below 50% on IPTC portfolio, which has subsequently improved. But for this affordable housing segment, the recovery rate at the peak of COVID situation was over 90%. So these
Right.
people, the primary school teacher or a security guard or a nurse, they are very cautious about paying back their liabilities. So
Right.
that's a lesson we have learned, and I think other GFIs or even the commercial ones will learn from us. So responsibility of GFIs is to create good examples within the country so that others can really emulate that good example, and then basically it becomes a mainstream practice. And it's not only within the national boundary. Of course, we can learn from each other's good examples. So today I learned a lot from Malaysian examples and Qatar example. Definitely we can learn from each other and emulate the good practices.
Thank you, Mr. Mumin. I think it's very interesting that one of the major issues facing especially sustainable cities and communities is the availability of housing, as housing prices go beyond affordability of the I would say the medium class or the lower income bracket. We see a lot of stress on the population as well. So let's, which brings us to the next question, which is very, very, very important as well. Now, earlier on, Mr. Mu'min talked about DFIs going in, and the reason why we asked about interest rate is how we compare how DFIs operate in comparison to the commercial financial institutions. Now, which brings us to this question: we have always operated in the bottom dollar zone. We always want to know what is the where our decisions are only or usually are driven by the net profit or viability of the project. And in some cases where even DFIs are required to show profit or required to show additional income and whatnot, rarely do businesses or funding agencies take into account the economic viability, environmental protection, and a social equity. How can we change this? How is Qatar Development Bank approaching this solution? Perhaps you can share with us, Ms. Amna.
Sure. So I just wanted to recap to what Mr. Momin has shared. He's spoken a lot about the public policy and the government role in pushing the boundaries when it comes to the environmental protection. So I think it has been covered clearly. If you'll allow me to talk about particularly how it has been when it comes to Qatar Development Bank or other financial institutions, I think the question becomes beyond policies and procedures to the requirements of funding.
Right.
The challenge that happens is when environmental impact or other social impacts are considered something above what you do. So it is considered, it falls somehow in the line of corporate social responsibility. And it's a very tricky part, because when it taps into a corporate social responsibility, you start perceiving it as a cost center. And when issues happen, such as COVID-19, the first thing that you will sort of diminish or get rid of is the corporate additional cost, if you're reviewing it in that way. So I think the way we have approached it at Qatar Development Bank is that we have tried to innovatively institutionalize it within our strategy. So every single product and service that we launch, how do we incorporate the environment impact? How do we incorporate the community aspect of it? And the way, if we look at it from a zoomed in view, when you evaluate the financial criteria, there are very basic three things that you look at: national level or a bigger scale level, and then the business, and then one more level, which is the individual. So when you're looking at it from a national level, a key question becomes, okay, are you bringing in an innovative technology that is green, that is clean for the climate? Are you basically revolutionizing the machinery that you're bringing, especially when we're talking about, for example, the industrial sector? Are you the jobs that are being created, the other opportunities that you are building in the ecosystem? This is when you're looking at it from a national level. Now you go one level down when it comes to the business. And of course, as you have said, we are still a financial institution, so the economic viability is always going to be a question. No doubt about that, and as well for the sustainability for the country. Another aspect which I want to highly emphasize on, which is the individual level. An important aspect of it is building awareness. Development banks are not only supporting SMEs and startups in the mean being, we view, at least at Qatar Development Bank, that we are preparing the future generation. These things, especially when it becomes about the social aspects and the environmental aspects, these things that you need to start from the very early ages. So Qatar Development Bank offers huge initiatives when it comes to incubation and trainings. And sometimes being responsible, it's a skill set that you need. How can I run my business while being efficient? And a big inspiration that we see across the world, businesses, very small businesses that actually created a competitive advantage just because as being green and being good to the right. environment. I think the question becomes, how do you look at it? It's not a process and it's not a procedure that you put in. It's how you incorporate this and institutionalize it as part of the strategy. And you no longer view it as a cost center, but as a value add that you're creating, whether today in a value of $1 or in the future, because it's an investment. It's an investment right. in the future generation.
That's a very interesting look as well. When we're looking at number one, of course, the key point that we can take away from Ms. Amna is essentially institutionalizing the decision criteria. Essentially, instead of looking at how you say a piecemeal, whether we're going to make money at the end of the day or not, we're actually institutionalizing the thought process in itself. Right from the moment you get the application all the way up, you're required to assess at the national level what are the impacts on the national level, and then you look at the business itself, how much the bottom dollar. Obviously, the bottom dollar is important. We can't completely ignore it as well. But another key point that Ms. Amna mentioned was the future. We're looking at the future impact due to that particular say proposal or investment, right? So that's one of the key things that we look at. And this brings us essentially to the next topic of our forum, which is economic growth and decent work for the future. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a historic recession with record levels of deprivation and unemployment. This is happening across the world, and even the first world countries, United States, England, Europe is not spared from this, creating an unprecedented human crisis. Now, this is unprecedented human crisis is actually not my quote. It's actually the quote from the World Economic Forum, right? So I'm just taking it from there, right? It's creating an unprecedented human crisis that is hitting the poorest the hardest. Now, some issues that could be addressed is job creation, opportunities, and methods. So whether we're looking at empowering technology and innovation to look at towards sustainable development, it is very key for us to look at whether technology is really going to create jobs or it's going to destroy further jobs as well, right? So that's something that we will be discussing. Now, of course, my first question would be to His Honorable the Minister, Deputy Minister. Generally, recent studies show that between economic growth and employment, there is a positive and strong relationship, meaning that economic growth generates new jobs, but of different intensity from one period to another and from one country to another. Now, this recent pandemic has affected thousands of Malaysians, hitting the poorest the hardest, especially when there is lockdowns and movement control orders across the country. How is your ministry responding to this? And what are the program outreach that the ministry is doing to help the poorest? I know this is science, technology, and innovation, but obviously, science, technology, innovation does not make any difference if it's not going out there to help out the poorest as well, especially in terms of creating more employment. Please, Your Honorable.
The Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, MOSTI, has launched the National Technology and Innovation Sandbox, NTIS program, comprising of 21.8 million Malaysian ringgit fund funding for 30 companies through. This funding program aims to provide financial access for SME startup companies to develop and conduct validation processes for their products, technologies, services in a controlled environment, which is we call it sandbox. NTIS will be helping to generate the national economy and also plays a role in helping to launch new technology application in various sectors, particularly with regard to combating the COVID-19 outbreak. From the initial application and screening process, 6 pilot projects have already been identified to kickstart the NTIS. These include a lightweight mobile robot deployed in agriculture to increase work efficiency and reduce the numbers of workers required, and easily scalable first of its kind semi-ventilator to assist patients with breathing difficulties. Another one is a robot to assist the recovery process of stroke patients or other medical conditions involving impaired or limited limb function. Then we also have a drone solution to automate high precision spraying of pesticides, saving time and cost in the agriculture sector and providing safeguards for food supply chains under pressure. Pick and place linear robots also we have for use in manufacturing, reducing disease transmission by reducing numbers of factory workers while increasing productivity, efficiency, and production quality. MOSTI also launched Malaysia Grand Challenge. We just launched it to invite the community to work together to overcome problems and improve the lives of the community, economic system, and environment at the national level or global. MGC will introduce various incentives and collaborative measures through the use of disruptive technology in an effort to prioritize science, technology, and innovation, thus making Malaysia a high-tech country. In order to reach out to the Rakyat, MOSTI had organized a nationwide series of hackathon. Ms. Amna mentioned hackathon just now, through which everyone was invited to come together to co-create digital solutions that will help improve service being delivered and thereby improve the well-being of the Rakyat. Upskill and reskilling programs are now conducted under National Employment Council, NEC, which MOSTI and KKMM are co-chaired together under DIGTECH and Future Skills High-Level Task Force. Through these programs, selected retrenched workers and graduate students will undergo a few weeks to months of courses that will help them to gain new skill set which are required by industries. They will be bonded to respected companies that have signed the MOU for job placement within 1 or 2 years accordingly. MOSTI via NTIS and MAGIC also had collaborated with FELDA recently to increase the average income of FELDA settlers through reducing farm operating costs or increasing farm yields. Diversified activities in the FELDA plan to create high-value economic opportunities and employment for the new generations of FELDA and drive the development of talent to achieve the potential of becoming a high-tech country. Statistically, in our country, the loss of employment statistic LOE by Social Security Organization (SOCSO) recorded a 20.2% decrease to 7,388 people in September 2020 compared to the previous month of which is about 9,261 people. Apart from that, labor supply in the third quarter of 2020 after recording the highest unemployment rate of 5.1% in the second quarter of 2020. The employment rate in this quarter decreased to 4.7%. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. His Honorable Mr. Amzad, and we can see that as the economies rebound, we also see that the employment rate, the unemployment rate as well decreases, and we can also see that the MOSTI is actually working together with the National Employment Council to look at upskilling as well as future skilling, and we also see that there's also programs for retrenched workers, job placement program for retrenched workers to be retrained and enter into the workforce again, right? So, which brings us to the next question. With the advent of technology and increased connectivity, coupled with the pandemic, which forced laggard consumers on board the digital economy, we saw a dramatic increase in the gig economy. So in terms of when people, I've seen actually in Malaysia, perhaps those who are here with us in the Zoom applications, perhaps the same thing is happening to you in your country. In Malaysia, we've seen pilots that were actually flying Boeing 737s becoming food delivery boys because of the retrenchment and whatnot, right? So there, and at one end where you lose a job, there's another end where there's other opportunities that open up. So in Malaysia, we also saw many working part-time jobs in this gig economy. Pilots that were laid off, they took part-time jobs while the economy was recovering. Now, what do you see, Dato? What do you see? What do you foresee the new models of economy and its growth patterns, given the apparent, well, criticism and dismantling of capitalism, whatever debate is out there, following this pandemic? How should nations and organizations approach this? Perhaps you could share your views on this. It's an interesting question.
Thank you. Well, I'm not an economist, so I don't think I'm going to go into thinking what's going to happen in the future. But what I think we should look at is we should not be trapped or remain trapped or stuck in this low-level gig economy, meaning that we are happy with people sending food, generally working for those companies which provide those kind of services. Essentially, it is only different mode. Previously you have office boys, now you have, those kind of riders. It plays a role, it is important, it is needed, but, any government, I think any government in the world should have some kind of plan so that what we have in the gig economy would be to create more higher level jobs. For example, people who can work remotely as data scientists or as any other technical jobs that have a higher level of technical input, maybe even coders, maybe even copywriters, or even human resource professional, for example. So I think the discussion should not remain centered on that gig economy where, while it is important, I'm not saying that it's not important, but it is only shall we say, a movement from one platform to another, that's all. It does not really, in the sense, country. So I think moving forward, I would like to see for developing economies like us and maybe other countries will be, how can we develop a ecosystem where this kind of high-level gig economy is promoted and accepted. And this is not something that is going to be overnight, because in the US, for example, during this time, the higher-level gig economy, the data scientists, the designers, those kind of people, they are actually having a sort of a renaissance, but not in the developing economy. So I think these are things that we need to focus on, of creating an environment where this will be supported, will be encouraged, and employers are more open to the ideas of actually engaging these people to provide services on top of the the delivery services that we normally talk about nowadays, right, as example economy. So I think that's all. Thank you.
That's quite true. Actually, I have a few friends that are actually providing, how you say, in terms of high-level gig economy programming, how you say, programming services. You know, SQL, PHP, or different types of programming, and they're into that type of how you say, so quasi part-time as well. You know, at the same time they're working and they're providing this kind of services as well. So that's true. How to proceed to the next question, though, to Miss Amna, essentially, right, which brings us to the questions. Needless to say, development finance institutions are mandated to help the economy grow, right? And how has DFIs addressed economic growth in the different regions, especially in these crucial times? What are the, well, not for Ms. Amna, I think this question is for Mr. Mukmin. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. How has DFIs addressed economic growth in the different regions, especially in these crucial times? And what are the main criteria to addressing economic growth, and what outcomes do you set as a measure of success? Perhaps you can share with us in what's happening in Bangladesh.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Prashad. Basically, after World War II, many of the economic European countries, there basically DFIs played a key role in reconstructing the economy. And then Asia Pacific countries, Africa and Latin America as well, picked up from there. And there was a huge euphorism and optimism centering this development finance institutes. But in many emerging countries, DFIs could not fulfill the promise it was mandated, and then they were like amalgamated with other organizations, or they were converted into commercial banks or financial institutions. But
Right.
then again, after 2008, after the financial crisis, we have seen there is a renewed interest in development finance institutes' role in national economy. Even in USA, we are seeing now that there have emerged many development finance institutes, and in Europe, there are large development finance institutes between 2005 and 2015. Their total asset under management has grown tripled, and number of institute has also almost doubled. So within that context, basically there are two things. One is whether we look into pure economic growth, or we look into the quality of the economic growth. So this is one fundamental question we are always fraught with, that okay, we can get into large infrastructure development or industrialization, where basically the economic growth, there is a direct relationship, but at the same time the inequality, or when we address the empowering the marginalized people, like the women empowerment, or a small ethnic group, say economic activity generation, they are basically sometimes the DFIs are seen as aid agencies. So the aid agencies have certain objectives, and then you have to be also commercially viable institution. So sometimes we have seen as very working in a non-competitive, self-promoting environment, whereby there is a lack of governance. So this is where the key difference is, where there is no governance. There is a departure from sound governance, or there is no accountability or efficiency or sustainability. The DFIs have failed, but where the DFIs have ensured a sound governance, they have worked for accountability and efficiency, and then they have served the society. DFIs has created enormous social and economic benefit. So I would say that we work in a matter whereby the public resources we are channeling to private sector. In many of the instances where there was like a hybrid combination, the PPP-based institutes, like where public and private sector both contributed to the establishment and management of the organization. Like in IPDC, we have a government representation, we have development agency representation, and private sector representation. So we work for profit with purpose. So that model has somehow now emerging more, say, efficient and effective than others. So definitely, when we will set our parameters, so of course, the economic growth is there, but as I said, the quality of economic growth. So we have to look for employment generation. We have to look for financial inclusion, especially for cottage, micro, small, and medium enterprises. We look
Right.
for eradication of inequality or mitigation of inequality in the economy, as well
Mm-hmm.
as women entrepreneur empowerment, as well as environmental protection. The good thing is you have say bifurcate your portfolio in a way that there will be social mandate, as well as you can generate enough profit whereby you can subsidize some of the socially priority sectors, and you can make sure that this quality of growth in the economy is ensured through the DFI is mandated with. So what I will say that DFIs like IPDC, as you saw, you told that IPDC has grown by more than 10 times in last 5 years, and we have one of the lowest NPA in the market. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, IPDC's example of social impact is being quoted by the market that, okay, we have bring in the market-based approach to social and economic development of the country. So I think this is where the future is, and all the DFIs should work for economically prosperous, socially harmonious, and environmentally friendly ecosystem development in a say a sustainable manner. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, thank you. I think it's a very critical balance, isn't it? On one hand, but I think DFIs primarily play a part when the economic downturn happens. That's when they actually come forward and they try to prop up the economy during that particular cycle. Now, last few years we've actually seen a lot of countries that depend on oil and gas being impacted, and Malaysia is being one of them as well. So oil and gas exploration and production companies, or ENPs, are slated to lose a staggering 1 trillion in revenues in 2020, according to analysis by research firm Rystad Energy. By this year, it's projected to bring in 1.47 trillion, reflecting a 40% decline year on year. Many nations, especially developing nations, including Malaysia and Qatar, depend on income from oil and gas. Despite this pandemic has shown much opportunities, I believe. Where are the new growth areas for industries, and what is the role of DFIs in promoting this, Ms. Amna, if you could share with us?
Sure. So, I've mentioned many countries, including Qatar, traditionally had relied on energy. But honestly, the conversations about diversifying the economy had begun years ahead before the COVID pandemic. So, at Qatar, we have the Qatar National Vision 2030 that mainly had that diversification as a main goal. What happened with the pandemic is that it has created a burning platform for us to future proof our economy. So, what we were going to experience in 2030, we have been accelerated to witness it right now. So, if I'm using the digital transformation, we are being at an MVP stage right now of what the future would look like, which is something honestly positive because it means that there is an inflection point where we all have to not disrupt but make a change. And I really want to emphasize on the future of work studies. So a lot of people and scientists are actually researching, okay, how would the future look like? Are we going to go back to how we were? So any businesses, whether it's a startup or a governmental institution, they have to consider the three main parameters of a business model: how they work, the skills that they need, and how they generate value to the ecosystem. If you look at Qatar, you've spoken about the opportunities or where the growth is happening. The growth, honestly, is happening at many different sectors. There are a few examples that are sort of impressive because they are way ahead in the future. So I think His Excellency have mentioned robots. We do see robotics in the financial sector. We see eco-friendly electric buses already initiated. We see aerial taxi as a test happening as well with our telecommunication. And we see as well augmented reality. And if you see augmented reality have already been implemented in schools. And we invite you all to the World Cup of Qatar 2022, which a part of it is going to be on the augmented reality. So the growth area, the innovative technology being spearheaded and being tested all across Qatar. There are so many opportunities. Now, with the question of how does Qatar Development Bank or how do development banks support in that area, with us, we've looked at it again. I emphasize on this point beyond the funding, beyond the financing that you provide for the startups. The way we have tackled it is that we have taken, sort of to speak, batches or sectors. So just recently, the past 6 months, we have launched the Qatar FinTech Incubation, which is a huge, the largest in the region. And essentially what you have taken is the best out of the best in the FinTech. You're taking them into an incubation, you're accelerating them, giving them seed funding, and basically seeing them grow. We have similarly partnered up when it comes to the sports technology. Sport Tech, again, have done the same process for them. So we have realized that taking startups into batches with a focused sector first enhances the growth within the sector, and you're actually creating automatically an ecosystem within the economy. So this is how we have been approaching growth areas, because if a startup were to do it single-handedly, there might be some reactions from the market which are not as expected. So exactly. So doing it batches, offering financial support, advisory, incubation, mentorship will put growth opportunities at a higher chances of succeeding.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Ms. Amna, on that. I believe the 2022 is an augmented reality conference. Is that right? Did I hear that correctly?
No, yeah. So a part of the World Cup experience, the Qatar hosting it, because we're hosting the World Cup for the football. A part of that was actually,
yes, correct.
They are introducing augmented reality in the experience as well.
Fantastic. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have to look forward to Qatar hosting the 2022 World Cup. It's going to be, I believe, it's going to be a fresh experience this time around. So this brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to the end of the forum. We would like to open for questions, but since we're out of time, we would like to limit the number of questions. And you may type the questions in the Q&A box with your name, title, and your questions. And we already have a couple of questions here. We might not be able to take all the questions, but we will try our best to entertain 2 or 3 questions at least. Now, I have the first question. Perhaps I can give to Dato' Nur Halim. Do you have any priority to support the project and innovation for climate change or green energy as a government? But before that, Dato', I would like to extend wishes from his Honorable Deputy Minister. He had to leave for another meeting, so he extends his thank you and appreciation for inviting him, and he had a wonderful session. And I think and I also received a message from his assistants that they've actually taken note on ideas from Ms. Amna, Mr. Momin, as well as Dato' Halim himself. Right, so that's from the Deputy Minister. So Dato', the question is, do you have any priority to support the project and innovation for climate change or green energy as part of the government?
Yeah. I think for us, those are one of those things that we look for in projects, and when we have funded actually quite a lot of projects in those areas. The only thing that I just want to add on top of that is because our agenda is actually innovation in a broader scale. Therefore, in general, I have said early on during the first session that, at the end of the day, innovation has to be supported across the continuum. And because sometimes at the outset, you may think that innovation is only for a particular sector or subsectors, but as you grow the innovation, it might impact other sectors as well. So I think that is the broader answer to the question. But as far as innovation in these sectors of green energy and those which creates sustainability, those are things that we look out for. And I'm happy to share with all those who are here that at the end of December, I think it was 27 or 28, one of our companies was actually awarded by the United Nations to be the first company given the award for their work in terms of plastics, recycling plastics and the likes, and we funded this company many years ago because a lot of work in this field is deep tech. These are not things which you can write codes today and sell it tomorrow, right? So this requires a lot of patient, very patient investment or patient capital or whatever you want to call it, where you need to invest for the long term. And to a certain extent, I think just now, I think it was Mr. Mukminun who said about sometimes the DFI has to take the lead. Because when you talk to commercial banks, they don't know this sectors, and sometimes not just they don't know, they don't want to know because it is outside their area of expertise. So when you talk to them, say, no, I don't know this technology, right? So it's high risk to me, I don't understand, therefore I don't touch. So I think to a certain extent, when we talk about innovation and innovation in fields which are important to a nation, DFI has to play a certain role. And in our case, because we are not a funding agency like, a loan agency, we are more of a risk fund agency. So I think there is scope for us to work with other DFIs who play the traditional role of funding banks, right? DFI as a bank. And in this case, we are working with, in Malaysia at least, as a member of ADFIM, we are working with several of the ADFIM partners in several projects. As I mentioned earlier on, we are working with one of the partners for digitalization funding for small retailers. We are also in the process of working with the Agriculture Bank to fund projects which will make use of innovations generated in Malaysia for the smallholder farmers, right? And also we are working with the other agents, the other DFIs, to work with SMEs to move up the technology value chain. Because, you mentioned just now about the gig economy. Sorry, I'm expanding the topic a little bit here. Sure. But you see, when we talk about I 4.0 and we talk about the pillars, example of pillars would be robotics and the likes. Of course, if you go to the West, to the developed world, they'll talk about collaborative robots. We are not there yet. But if we talk about robots for SMEs, then we will need to develop the human resource who are able to operate and maintain these robots. And this is where I mentioned just now, when we talk about the gig economy, and when we talk about the economy developing as a whole, we need to develop sectors where by developing that sectors, higher level jobs will be created. So by getting our SMEs to move up the technology value chain, they will then utilize higher level of technologies that will require higher level of expertise in terms of developing robotics technicians and the likes. As an example, I talk about drones just now in agriculture. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to develop a group of entrepreneurs who will be able to offer drone services. I mean, Mr. Mukminul, I don't know it is in the Bangladesh, but in Malaysia, if you have a paddy field, if you have a field of paddy, it's not big enough for you to call a tractor to work on your field. But if there are 10 of you, you work together and then you call one service provider who brings their tractor. Similar model can be used for drones. And can develop the drone economy where those youth can actually then offer drone services. Yeah. So I think this is what we need to do along this line of actually looking at what fits for us and developing it rather than looking at what the US is doing and try to do to be the US if you are not. So I think that's a long answer for a short question.
Thank you, Dato. I think that was a very comprehensive answer. I'm not going to comment in terms of because we were running short of time, because we have one question for Miss Amna, and this question is long. This is from Mazani Nusa from Aminuddin Baki Institute, and she's asking how the Islamic world, especially Qatar, helps ensure that technology can be utilized comprehensively, especially ensuring the penetration of the internet, especially in rural areas, islands, and overcoming the poverty of people like Malaysia in the current COVID-19 situation. I think there's some of it that you've already answered earlier. Perhaps you could expound on that a little bit more.
Sure. Thank you for the first. In Qatar, the penetration of the internet is estimated around, I think, 98%. We have less of the rural area challenges. However, we understand the global community and the context of the global community. I would really encourage you to look through the report, which is called the Global Competitiveness Report, and they have recently published the 2020 version of it. So in essence, it talks about, we're in this world together, all of us, although we are at different locations in the world, we're closely, and the more we have discussed today, the more I realize that we are faced with a similar challenges. The short answer to that, there are three key actions to be taken. One is by the ICT companies, the startups and the entrepreneurs. There is a big responsibility on them for that. The second comes the infrastructure from the government or the government infrastructure. And the third is the global community. So looking at such reports, such as the Global Competitiveness Report, enables us as well from different locations in the world to actually benchmark and compare against each other and find opportunities for facing these challenges. So in short, this is what I would suggest going about it.
Yes, unmute. Thank you very much, Ms. Amna, on that response. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is no more questions. I would like to, because we have actually run 20 minutes above time than what we have actually initially allocated, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my sincerest appreciation to ADFIMI, the Association of Development Finance Institutions from the Middle East, as well as the Association of Development Finance Institutions Asia Pacific, as well as my teammates in ADFIM, who tirelessly worked and helped us at the background to organize this forum. And we hope this forum actually provided an avenue for everyone to exchange views, and it actually was beneficial in terms of the experiences shared. Now, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed panelists who allocated time within their very, very busy schedule. We really, really do appreciate that. We sincerely appreciate that. And to share their experience, expertise, and knowledge with us today. And we do hope that the sharing session today will provide an idea and impact to policymakers and leaderships across the world in ensuring a sustainable development. So that brings us to a close of this forum. Until we meet again, right, please stay safe, maintain social distancing, and please do get vaccinated. Wabillahi tawfiq wal hidayah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. And a very good evening to everyone. Bye-bye and take care. Thank you.